Shadow Slave. By Guiltythree. Chapter 169. Back to the future. 3 months later, Sunny was back at the castle. Well, to be precise, he had returned here once before, to buy a few items that were hard to come by in the ruins. However, back then, Nephi's and her cohort had been away on a hunt. No such luck today. The moment he had been dreading for so long was finally here. Hearing Changing Stat's voice, Sunny slowly turned around, glanced at her, and forced out a smile. "Hey, Neph. Long time no see." He tried to sound casual, but a slight tremble betrayed the storm of emotions raging in his heart. Why did she have to be here? The turmoil of their sudden meeting was exasperated by the fact of how different they looked. The past months only made Nephi's appear more radiant and splendid. Her white armor was pristine and graceful, her silver hair clean and combed. Sunny, on the other hand, looked like a pile of dirt that had somehow come to life. Both he and the puppeteer's shroud had seen better days. He didn't want to see her, but even more than that, he didn't want her to see him in this sorry state. What if Neph gets the ridiculous idea that he was somehow miserable after falling out with her? Nonsense. He was doing better than ever. He lived in a palace, ate delicious food every day, and had even become incredibly wealthy. If anyone should be miserable, it would be her. You do realize that you said that out loud, do you? Sunny blinked, remembered where he was, and stared at Changing Star in shock. Huh? What? She smiled with a corner of her mouth. You just zoned out and mumbled, "Why did she have to be here," under your breath. That was not very polite. Sunny hid his embarrassment behind a grin and said, "Yeah, well. I meant it." Neph sighed. "I'm glad to see you too, Sunny. It's good that you're alive." Trying to conceal his discomfort, he shrugged. "What, you didn't expect me to survive without you?" She looked at him for a while and slightly shook her head. "No. On the contrary, I knew that you would be fine." Then, she paused for a moment and added in a flat tone, "After all, a cockroach like you is not easy to kill." Sunny scoffed. Now who's being impolite? Nephi stared at him in confusion for a couple of moments, then chuckled. "Oh, sorry. I meant it as a compliment." He was glad to see Neph, too. As much as Sunny wanted to deny it, he had desperately missed her calm presence. Somewhere along the way, without even noticing, he had grown reliant on having her by his side, but meeting her was also a nightmare. After all, nothing had really changed after their bitter quarrel. Even though the intensity of it all diminished, the future that Cassie had foretold was still inevitable. Now that the initial shock of running into Changing Star disappeared, Sunny took a closer look at her. Nephi's looked stronger. He didn't know how much soul essence she had been able to absorb while he was gone, but it seemed like it was a lot. Neph was always confident and arresting, but now, her presence grew to a completely new level. But then again, he was not the same weak fool either. The Dark City had made him into a fearsome creature as well. The months he had spent hunting monsters in the absolute darkness of the cursed ruins turned him stronger, smarter, and much more deadly. If a little bit insane, Sunny doubted that any human on the Forgotten Shore had killed as many powerful nightmare creatures as he had in the same amount of time. At least not in single combat. Don't go on a tangent and forget where you are again. With a flinch, Sunny realized that he had been silent for a long time. An awkward silence hung between them, threatening to make him look bad. I need to say something. Like, how have you been? No, that's a stupid question. How about? However, before he could speak, Nephi's asked, "So what brings you to the Bright Castle? Are you back?" Startled, he scratched the back of his head and scrambled to find an answer. "Oh, just doing some shopping." She blinked. Shopping? Wait, did that sound weird? Sunny's eyes widened. Wait, did I say that out loud again? He slapped his mouth shut and looked at Changing Star in horror. Goddamit. Who knew that a habit of talking to myself would be so detrimental to keeping my dignity intact? On the ground next to him, the shadow was having a swell time basking in his anguish. It was shaking its head and dying laughing. Several seconds later, Sunny was finally able to speak again. Yeah. Shopping. I have some soul shards to spare, so I wanted to buy a memory. Or few. Nephi's looked at him for a while, then said, "I see." Then, she turned away and asked, her voice calm and even, as always. Do you want to go somewhere and talk? Sonny's heart skipped a bit. He gritted his teeth. Sorry. No can do. I'm waiting for someone. Changing Star lingered for a few moments, then asked, You're hiding in that alley because you're waiting for someone? Who are you waiting for, Sonny? He waved a hand. Oh, you know. A friend. Well. More like an associate, really. An acquaintance. Neff remained silent for a few moments, then said in an even tone, You can just say no. No need to invent some. But right at that moment, an enchanting voice came from the entrance of the alley, Sonny. Hey, are you here? Turning around, Sonny saw a beautiful young man with gorgeous auburn hair and mesmerizing green eyes enter the alley. He was wearing an armor made out of burnished brown leather and blue silk clothes beneath, all of which fit him perfectly. On his face, there was a bright smile. It was Kai Knight. Whatever his name was, Sonny exhaled with relief. What do you mean, invent? See, he's right. However, the words died on his lips. Because, when he turned to Changing Star, he saw something that he had never seen before. Looking at the young man whom he had set free from the bottomless dark well, Nephi's took a step back. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide and glassy. She seemed to be consumed by absolute, utter horror. Chapter 170, Star-Crossed. Sonny had never seen Nephi's show fear before, not to mention being truly horrified. Instantly, every muscle in his body tensed, and a cold shiver ran through it. It can't be, it can't be. She was a person who faced demons and fearsome abominations without even flinching. What could scare her so much? Was he mistaken? Was Kai an incarnation of some primordial evil after all? How could this be? Panicking, he turned back to face the charming young man and outstretched one arm, ready to summon the Midnight Shard. Not that it would help if even Changing Star was scared. But, to his surprise, Kai wasn't showing any signs of being an ancient terror. In fact, he was looking at him with a cute expression of confusion. Sonny. Who is your friend? No, it didn't make any sense. Not only was Sonny sure of his judgment, he had also seen multiple people greeting Knight as though they knew and liked him. He couldn't be a nightmare creature. Then what was wrong with Nephi's? Keeping his shadow's gaze on the charming archer, Sonny slowly turned back and glanced at Changing Star. She was still standing there, seemingly paralyzed by fear. What was going on? Neff. She flinched and tore her eyes away from Kai. After a few seconds, Changing Star cautiously leaned forward and whispered, Sonny. What is Knight doing here? He frowned. He's the friend I was telling you about. She lingered, then shook her head. No, I mean what is he doing here? The emphasis was on the word, here. Where else would he be? Completely lost, Sonny struggled to understand what was going on. Maybe she knew something about the kidnapping. That didn't make sense. Finally, he said, I saved his life in the ruins, so he's doing me a favor in return. Nephi stared at him with desperation, then shook her head again. No, I mean what is Knight doing here, on the Forgotten Shore? Sonny scowled. Did you guys know each other in the real world? Nephi's looked at him with a funny expression. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Finally, she forced herself to speak. You don't know who he is. Meanwhile, Kai, who was politely staying silent through this whole weird conversation, smiled dazzlingly and said, he really doesn't. Isn't it wonderful? Sonny gave him a dark look. How would I know who he is? Make sense, please. Neff was silent for a while, then loudly whispered, That's Knight, you idiot. Knight from Nightingale. The Knight. What was she going on about? He had no idea what that meant. Sonny rubbed his face with irritation. What are you talking about? What is a nightingale? Nephi's looked at Kai, paled even more, and finally said in a small voice, It's only the best and most famous idol group of the last decade. Triple Orpheus winners, 100 consecutive weeks at the top of all charts, 6 diamond albums. That Nightingale. That Knight. The lead vocalist. Sonny simply stared. Wait. Are you telling me? Was she so out of it because Kai used to be a member of some stupid boy band in the past? Changing Star was not horrified, she was starstruck. He remained silent for a while, and then exploded into laughter. Gods. Oh gods. Nephi's is a fangirl. What the spell, that's too funny. Come to think of it, when they first met, she had been wearing headphones the whole time. He should have realized that Neph was into music much earlier. Mighty and stoic Changing Star, brought down by a dainty idle boy. That was just too hilarious. He wasn't even jealous. What were the chances of meeting her bias in the damn dark city? You couldn't come up with that crap. As he was dying from laughter, both Changing Star and Kai glared at him with difficult expressions. However, Sunny just couldn't stop. His laughter only died down after he began wheezing. Sorry. I just didn't expect it. From you. Ha. Oh, gods. As for your question, Knight has been here for about 2.5 years. He lives in the castle. Nephi seemed thoughtful for a few moments, then glanced at Kai with wide eyes. 2.5 years. But I thought that Nightingale was just on hiatus because of Gale's solo project. Oh, there's a Gale, too. I can't even. Kai smiled apologetically. I'm afraid not. I have indeed spent all this time here, in the Dark City. My agency had to come up with some cover story, I guess. With how things are, they can't even spin things and release a posthumous album, poor guys. You know, since I'm not technically dead, or even hollow. Just asleep. Neph gave him a shy nod. Oh. I see. Trying to remove the awkward atmosphere, Kai offered her another smile. By the way, it's so nice to meet another friend of Sunny's. What a surprise. I thought that he was a complete a solitary person. I'm sorry, but I didn't catch your name. Was it Neph? Looking at him, Sunny grinned. Then, he cleared his throat and said in a relaxed tone, Oh right, I forgot to introduce you. Sorry, by bad. Knight, this is Nephi's. Although these days she goes by another name. You might have heard it. Meet Changing Star of the Immortal Flame Clan. Now, it was Kai's turn to stare at Neph with horror. The corner of his eye twitched. However, perhaps due to his idle training, he managed to hide his emotions much faster. Blinking a few times, he lingered for a moment, and then said in his smooth, enchanting voice, Oh. It's a pleasure to meet you, my lady. I have heard so much about you. It's an honor. Nephi's turned away, trying to hide a hint of blush on her cheeks. Staring at the wall of the alley, she hesitated, then awkwardly said, So. Your friend is already here, Sunny. Can we go have a talk now? She glanced at him and added after a bit of hesitation, I have something important to discuss with you. It's a matter of life and death. Chapter 171, Tether. Sunny blinked a couple of times, digesting her words. A matter of life and death. If Nephi's used these words, the situation was indeed dire. She was not someone to throw words to the wind. However, she was also not to be trusted. No matter how much Sunny wanted for things between them to go to the way they had been before, he knew that it was impossible. There was no way back for either of them. Sunny knew the true face of Changing Star now. He had seen the endless force of her conviction. In the flaming white inferno of her soul, all things were reduced to ash. Human concepts like loyalty, mercy, and affection had no hope of escaping that annihilation. No matter what bonds connected them, Sunny could not trust Nephi's to put them above her boundless obsession. If push came to shove, she would sacrifice anything. Or anyone. To achieve her goal. Including him. At least that was what he believed. What's more, despite the fact that she tried to hide it, Sunny could feel that Neph's demeanor toward him had changed as well. He couldn't tell how exactly, but there was something almost imperceptibly different about how she looked at him. Once broken, trust was not easy to put back. Perhaps it was simply impossible. And yet, despite all that, was he really capable of refusing her plea for help? Sunny sighed and closed his eyes for a moment. No. No, he didn't think he was. Even if things between them became strained, she was still one of the only two people he cared about in this world. The way he felt toward Neff was almost like a second flaw. No matter how much he wanted to, he just couldn't get rid of it. Somewhere along the way, it had taken root in his soul. He had hoped that it will wither and die if they were apart, but instead, it just grew stronger. And now there was no escape from it. Sonny could feel himself being pulled back into the mess of humanity once again. Damn it. This was exactly why he had been reluctant to return here. After suffering so much to leave it all behind, why would he ever want to abandon his peaceful, pleasant, delightful life of solitude? Curses. But he just couldn't refuse Neff. However, that didn't mean that he was going to become her compliant sidekick again. Even if they were going to work together, they were going to do it on his terms. Focus. You came here to purchase memories to feed for the Stone Saint. Changing Star was looking at him expectantly. Sonny tried to appear confident and casual as he said, "We can have a talk, but not right now. I'll come find you when I'm done with my business." Whatever it was that she wanted to discuss, it could not be extremely urgent. After all, Nephi's had no idea that he was going to return from the ruins today. If there was no time to waste, she would not be wasting it on him, logically. Changing Star was silent for a few moments, her face indifferent. Then, finally, she answered in a flat tone, "That is fine. You know where to go." Sonny smiled. "Oh, and if you don't mind, I'll bring Night with me." Both of them stared at him with the same doubtful expression. "You will?" Turning to the charming young man, Sonny pretended to be surprised by his question. "Don't you want to meet my other friends? They'll be able to answer all your stupid questions, for sure." Night hesitated. "I guess." "Wonderful." Sonny gave him a nod and glanced at Nephi's, who was clearly wondering if her idol could really be trusted. "It's decided then. Now, if you'll excuse us." Truth be told, he didn't trust the pretty archer that much either. But his ability to detect lies would come in incredibly handy during the conversation with Changing Star. She was the one and only graduate of Sonny's School of Deception and Lies, after all. Pushing Kai away, he waited until they were at an appropriate distance and asked, "So what did you find out about the memories?" Soon enough, they were entering the bright castle. Sonny felt strange returning to this splendid, suffocating place. This time, he came as a guest of a well-regarded resident, not as a slum dweller seeking to exchange a soul shard for a moment of respite from the cold, darkness, and terror. The guards did glance at him with disdain, but remained passive. Walking under the swinging skulls, they entered the familiar hall of beautiful colored glass windows. The opulent desk that Harper used to sit behind was still there, only now, a similarly downtrodden young woman was scribbling on a piece of parchment instead. The world didn't care about the death of one little human. It just moved on, instantly replacing that which was lost. Forgetting it. Sonny grimaced. "So, you did find me some memories to buy. What are the prices?" Kai smiled, gestured him to follow, and said, "I did you one better. I actually managed to get us an invitation to the memory market." Sonny frowned. "Eh, what? Never heard of it." The charming young man gave him a nod. "That's not surprising. It's a place where you can peruse various memories and purchase them for an acceptable price." I say acceptable, but you know who has all the shards in this place. So, usually, they only let the members of the host in." Made sense. Gunlog would never allow memories to freely circulate among people who did not belong to him. The guards and hunters, though, needed a place to exchange memories that didn't fit their aspects for either shards or something that did. "Then how did you get the invitation?" Kai shrugged. "It's not that hard if you have the shards. Problem is, very few of us free folk do." To Sonny's surprise, they actually entered one of the forbidden areas of the castle. After walking down a few long corridors and going down several flights of stairs, a sturdy wooden door appeared before them. There was a symbol of a sword and shield drawn on it. Winking at him, Knight opened the door and walked inside. Sonny followed. Once he saw the interior of the room, his eyes glistened with excitement.